Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review for the book Voyager by Diana Gabaldon, the third Outlander book. And this is where I'm stopping with the Outlander books. I will be looking into the show because this book frustrated me on certain kind of choices and stuff that was kind of going on. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I didn't that I disliked Diana's writing style or anything, or what actually was kind of happening. It's just really got down to execution and what the overall kind of objective of this book was. Almost like they kept trying to pigeonhole her into the whole romance kind of bit, which she then kind of... I noticed a pattern where we get pretty much the same kind of romance kind of scenes that pop up almost sporadic, well, not sporadically, but on a certain kind of cadence where it's like, okay, there hasn't been a love scene or thing, so let's kind of do this, where I'm more interested in the historical kind of stuff that's kind of going on, and I think she is as well, but because the editors and stuff are like, hey, this is really, we gotta do the romance kind of stuff, it's like, alright. And it just also gets down into certain kind of structural strangeness. Because the beginning of this is really kind of weird for me, because we jump back and forth between 1968 and Jamie's whole bit of the 1700s, pretty much dealing with the fallout of Culloden and Jamie surviving, and then being in Ardsmuir's prison, meeting up with Lord John Grey, and then going to Hellwater and having a son named Willie. It's just, and then back and forth between what's going on with Claire and having this flashback of kind of explaining stuff of how she dealt with having Brianna, living with Frank, becoming a doctor, and all that kind of bit. I did enjoy them trolling through history and trying to find Jamie and figuring out where he kind of was, so that Claire could go back. It just was... I almost wanted them to, do it all in one from Claire's kind of bit, and then maybe Claire going back into the past, hooking up with Jamie, and then him kind of relaying what was kind of going on, and his major kind of story beats. But no, we kind of get it. Them doing their investigation, and then sometimes going into Jamie doing his bit and getting more information on that route, and then kind of going back and forth. It just didn't work really structurally for me. I really got more into it as we get to Claire making her decision to go back and find Jamie, and it working out. She pretty much goes back to the same kind of time period that they've kind of linked up, 20 years having passed, and then it kind of goes into a weird kind of bit. See, the strength of the first two books is that we have the antagonistical force of Blackjack Randall, pretty much in the first one. He is still in there in the second one, but we also have the looming threat of the Stuart Rebellion and Culloden and the Jacobite Rising. Here, we really don't have that. We just pretty much have them kind of coming together and trying to kind of figure out what's kind of going on. So we don't have that really kind of big event. We do get background information on Jamie's whole kind of bit, how he survived, Culloden. Later on, we get this whole bit with understanding Murtaugh as he's talking to Claire, even though it takes a while to kind of get that information. It's like, oh, okay, because then we get an acceleration kind of bit towards the end that this book goes completely kind of crazy. Kind of similar to Brandon Sanderson's kind of stuff, where it's like, this book is almost done, we got 200 pages left, and then all fucking shit in hell breaks loose. It's like, what has occurred here? Granted, I don't hate exactly what happened. We needed just more runway to actually deal with it. It's very kind of rare that I'm talking about an over 1,000 page book, and I'm almost like it needs to be not longer, but things needed to be cut that just really didn't fit into the overall kind of plotting or what we were kind of going for. Things needed to be tightened up with certain kind of things. Let's see. We pretty much get what I really did connect with, at least in the beginning part, was Claire trying to understand going back, and Brianna kind of letting her go and be like, even though I love you and still need you, you need to go and do this for yourself and try and reconnect with the man you love. And that really affected me. It's something that I would be like, yeah, Mom, go do your stuff. You've taken care of me, now go take care of yourself, kind of thing. I really liked that aspect a lot. And her going back with period money, actually taking penicillin with her and like needles and stuff, her understanding her relationship with Joe Abernathy, even though it didn't take, it's kind of more of a background thing, and then understanding that we've got this like dead woman from the Caribbean, which pops up later pretty much just randomly of like, oh, Claire's the one that killed that woman. It's like, what? Okay. But her going back and then finding Jamie in the print shop and understanding everything that he's kind of gone through, him pretty much leading the people in Ardsmuir prison, being the point of contact, him becoming friends with Lord John Grey, but learning that Lord John Grey had fallen in love with him, and their kind of strain in the beginning as that kind of put off because, of course, of Jamie's whole experiences with Blackjack Randall. He's thinking of it more as a kind of power play, I think, in the beginning, whereas Lord John doesn't understand that he has gone through that whole ordeal and why he had such a visceral reaction. Though later on in the books, I think he does learn, maybe not exactly about it, but understand why he kind of had that reaction he did in the beginning. Let's see. So then we also see that he escaped because they were looking for the Steward's treasure, which evidently becomes a whole big kind of deal through the rest of the books in the show. And because I also have discussed this is a series that my mom is very much into, and I kind of wanted to be able to talk to her about it and everything like that. And I have liked the discussions that we've had. It's just I'm more just like, oh god, it's sometimes you have to just skim through certain kind of aspects that pop into here. But we see that we were talking, Jamie was brought in by Lord John. He wanted to pretty much get out of Ardsmuir, and he was trying to find the Stewart Gold. But we see this dude that's like, recognizes Jamie, tells him about this treasure, but it's not the Stewart Gold, it's this weird silky treasure on this like seal island. So Jamie escapes prison for like 3 days because he thought it had some kind of link to Claire. But he didn't, but it didn't, and he found like a thing, but it was only just like a small kind of treasure, not this great Stewart hoard gold. Pretty much on the level of like Confederate gold, Nazi gold, all that kind of shit. It might change who's got it, but there's always the whole kind of bit of like, where's this certain treasure, which may be real, might be not. And then that most of the prison was pretty much being shut down, and most of the prisoners were being sent off to America, but Lord John was able to get him sent to Hellwater, pretty much as a groom, where he then pretty much got blackmailed into having sex with this young woman, which resulted in a kid, and she got married to this old dude, and the old dude was like, I know this is a bastard, and was pretty much threatening the kid, but Jamie like shot the dude because he was pretty much getting ready to harm the baby, and the rest of the family took the kid in, and Jamie decided to leave before the kid got old enough that people were like, hey, that kid looks like that groom. And then he pretty much became a smuggler and printer dude in Edinburgh, printing seditious stuff and being like, fuck you motherfuckers. And that's pretty much when Claire kind of pops up in the story. And they pretty much start kind of like relaying a little bit to each other, rekindling their connection, learning that Jamie has a manservant from China, Yi Tian Chow, who he calls Mr. Willoughby. And this, I understand like the racist kind of aspects of certain kind of times, but it gets to a point where you're like, if it's important to the plot, that's one thing. Like everybody kind of being mean to Mr. Willoughby when they're like actually on the voyage, because it takes a fuck long time to get to the voyage part of this thing, unless you're also counting the voyage part of like going through time. Where we learn that he was pretty much a poet, and they wanted him in like the royal court, but in order to do that he'd have to be a eunuch. But the thing is, he's able to write this stuff because he loves women, and so he decided to leave and escape. But he can't be in his homeland, and the thing is, he has a foot fetish. However, this is amplified to the fact that because of the bound feet and everything, he's also a foot fucker. I.e., where some of the bound feet sometimes get into like some kind of hole kind of aspect. I don't know, that's kind of where I kind of took it from, not explicitly stated or whatnot, but I'm just like, you could have just said he was into feet. That's kind of all I needed right there. And we get them like clashing with like the customs people. We get introduced to this Campbell dude and his sister Margaret, who has a link to Jamie, in that Jamie was friends with the person that she loved, and she tried to find him after the whole kind of Culloden incident, but was set upon by people that were going nutty and raped and fucked up, and she's pretty much been in like a vacillating state of like staring off into space and then going kind of ham on shit. But he evidently is like a Jack the Ripper kind of dude that's like killing women and shit, and that becomes important later on when they get to Jamaica. Yes, we get to Jamaica and America, and Yi Tian Chow is pretty much the suspect of killing this one woman, but it was the other dude, and Chow kills the Reverend as he's pretty much setting himself upon Claire. That's kind of nutty. We'll kind of circle back to that because it then links up to the whole nuttiness of what goes on later. So we see that this one dude pretty much knows who Jamie is, and the print shop gets burned down by young Ian, who is... We got a little kind of backstory of that, but he is your typical kind of stupid teenager kind of dude who wants to follow his uncle and have adventures and shit like that. So he's not annoyingly written. He is an annoying... Like, there's a difference between a character that is annoyingly written and an annoying character that's written well. Young Ian is that, in that he's a stupid young dude who does stupid young stuff. And he's pretty much trying to save his uncle and accidentally sets the print shop on fire. And then he's, like, vacillating between everything going on. His father, Ian, comes to pretty much drag his ass back to Lollybrock, but Ian kind of just lets him deal with Jamie at the moment, and then they did this whole kind of smuggling kind of liquor thing, and that went to hell in a handbasket. So Jamie, Claire, and young Ian get back to Lollybrock and have their whole kind of spit out with that, and we find out that Jamie has wed Leary, and that fucking Leary tries to kill his ass. Claire was pretty much just like in rage mode and was pretty much going back to Craigna Dune to leave his ass, but then he got shot, and Claire decided to like tend to him, shoot him some penicillin and shit. And the thing is, they have to pay off Leary, so they decide to go to the Silky Treasure kind of thing and have young Ian kind of go out for it for another kind of adventure, pretty much set upon by Ian and Jenny. Claire and Jenny kind of have a kind of tiff that kind of goes on, but they kind of get back to a kind of stable place. And they go after the treasure, but Ian gets fucking kidnapped by pirates. This gets really kind of random, as I rather than just stayed at Lollybrock or whatnot and waited for weird kind of European shit to come on, because if they had waited 40 years or whatnot, they would be dealing with like the Napoleonic Wars and shit like that, or other kind of important events around the continent in England. Here it's just random that when trying to go get the treasure to get stuff to pay off Leary, he gets beset by pirates, and then pretty much we hear nothing of him until like the last 200 pages when they finally get him. So Jamie and Claire go and pretty much go to France to get help from Jared, who we'd seen in the last book, and they pretty much start sailing to Jamaica for that shit, and that is just where it gets nutty. We see that Cho decides to capture a pelican and train it to fish for his ass. Claire gets fucking kidnapped by a man of war called the Porpoise to deal with pretty much a typhoid outbreak. And then she fucking throws herself off to pretty much Haiti? It wasn't called Haiti at the time. And gets linked up with this natural philosopher, Lawrence Stern, who knows Jamie, which is fucking weird. Like, the world is fucking huge, and she's running into all these people. This Father Fogden dude who's got sheep and all that, and then she still links back up with Jamie, who has now gotten the captain control of the Artemis. Fergus has also popped up and is in love with Leary's daughter, Marcely, and she's in love with him. He's 30, she's 15, and they have handfasted themselves, and we have that whole spiel going on this ship. But that was before Claire was captured and had to deal with that stuff. She actually meets Lord John Grey, who's supposed to be the new governor of Jamaica. But they don't know each other until we get to the point where they do get to Jamaica and they're at this party, and then they start kind of learning about each other. Because Campbell decided to go fuckball wild and fucking kill a widow, and that of course sets off the whole chain of events, and they're trying to deal with all the kind of ramifications of that. So, young Ian has pretty much disappeared for a good chunk of this fucking thing. Jamie's been dealing with seasickness and now captain's some shit, and like, alright, fuck this shit, going to Jamaica. They get to Jamaica, we pretty much have learned that there's this, from pretty much these two slaves, this one-armed one that, Claire pretty much had to buy because of the whole stink that she made, and then as they were beset upon by the Bruja, the kind of pirate ship, they took aboard this other slave, Ishmael, and he is marked with pretty much, well, he had his thing off. Temeraire, the other, the one-armed slave, he had pretty much this thing of like this Abernathy plantation, which had Stuart stuff and everything on it. It's like, okay, so they have to go and try and find this Mrs. Abernathy to see if she's got young Ian on her plantation. So they're pretty much gauging out shit at the governor's place. We see Claire have a nice kind of interaction with Lord John. Well, it's not really a nice one, but an understanding of him being a friend to Jamie, and understanding that he loves Jamie, but that Jamie doesn't love him that way, but considers him a very close friend. To the point that Lord John has taken pretty much care of his son Willie and gave him a picture of Willie. That was pretty cool. But then they go and we find out that Mrs. Abernathy is Gayless, who has gotten fat and is just nuttier. It's just like, I don't know why she's here. We learned that she's doing all this stuff thinking that blood is important, wondering why Claire's been able to go through the stones 3 times, wondering about stones of protection and everything like that. Pretty much still believing in kind of magic, but not using scientific, kind of using scientific methods, but not really to utilize these things. She is the one that has young Ian. She is trying to find the Stuart's line for this kind of like prophecy thing of this king or queen. Because Claire gave her pretty much the information that she was able to utilize a person as pretty much anchor points in her traveling capabilities through the stones. And this kind of sets off Gayless. She steals one of the photos and utilizes Brianna as that because she thought the Stuart line died out, but was utilizing young Ian and all these Scottish boys to kind of find the Stuart line from Lovett, the Fraser line. And of course was trying to go for Brianna for some fucking reason. The Reverend Campbell dude started ranting about the fucking prophecy thing before he tried to kill Claire, and Joe pretty much smacked the shit out of him and was like, I'm a fucking... I maybe should have just went through with being a eunuch and fucks off. It's like, okay. We get this weird kind of Loa ritual for spirits with Ishmael and them killing a crocodile and them taking care of Margaret, where spirits are able to speak through her. The slaves pretty much leave the plantation and take the Bruja and escape from Jamaica. That introduces the man of war to just pop up again and pretty much do a slave revolt takedown thing. I'm like, okay. And then the porpoise pretty much gets like destroyed. But before that shit happens, they get to pretty much Hispaniola, Haiti kind of bit, because that's where Gayless was, and she was pretty much going to utilize young Ian as a sacrifice. But Jamie and Claire team up together and fight. And the thing is, since they were going after Brianna, Claire goes fucking ham mode that Jamie had been pretty much talking about, of a warrior kind of thing. She takes an axe and pretty much thundercracks Gayless, and is the one that killed the woman that we see with Joe Abernathy, and that Ishmael is linked up in the lineage of Joe Abernathy as well. They get young Ian out. Young Ian pretty much explains that she was trying to do stuff with these young boys from Scotland. Some not coming back. Her being disappointed he's not a virgin. Doing shit with him. Pretty much forcing herself on him. Claire also uses the last of her penicillin because she thinks that Galus had syphilis and pretty much just took the dose to young Ian to pretty much save his ass. And it's like, it's pretty much, he gets really fucked up. It's like, okay, and this is all happening in the last 200 or so pages. It's like, we need more to actually deal with this shit. I'm like, this kid's got a lot of fucked up shit going on. And Jamie talking to Claire about Culloden and wondering why all these people are dying around him, why he's alive, survivors go. I like that shit. That's the shit I want more of. Not some of this stuff where it's like, alright, we're plotting through this. We've got the governor's kind of ball thing to kind of do. Now, granted, the governor's ball isn't that big of a kind of thing, but because actual stuff goes on with that. But I'm like, I want to deal with these character moments and actually get through with it. I don't mind Claire tending people that are sick and everything like that, but it was just the weirdest kind of way to kind of plot along of like, okay, can we kind of get through this porpoise stuff and get through this outbreak thing, because this is kind of starting to get annoying and it takes forever to kind of get through. They had also stolen, Lord John Grey was actually going to give them a vote, but Jamie's like, I'm an outlaw, I'm a smuggler, let me steal this shit so I don't make as much trouble for you. So he's able to do that. They pretty much then get chased after they pretty much take out Galus's ass, and the porpoise pretty much tries to follow him, but like all these storms destroy the boat, almost kill Claire, Jamie, and Ian, but then they somehow get thrown into Georgia, the colony of Georgia, in the Americas, and that's where it pretty much ends, with pretty much reuniting their people, and it's like, we end here? This is the weirdest kind of bit for it. I'm just like, what? Mainly down to its execution, because her leg was broken, and we're like, oh yeah, you guys somehow got pretty much up to Georgia. I'm like, huh? And I'm not that familiar with the geography of it, but I'm like, that's just fucking nuts. Okay, Wikipedia, you're actually not right on that account. That's incorrect information. It wasn't the Artemis, it was the Penance. And they didn't want Jared to be implicated in that either. And the thing is, they didn't take Fergus and Marcelly because Jamie's like, you're married now, because they also did a marriage ceremony for them with Father Fogden, who's pretty much like drunk on sangria and shit. Oh my god. Like, I like the characters, and I like the kind of situations. It's just getting down to the execution and how the plotting and pacing is done for certain kind of things. There's a lot of things in here that I'm like, I kind of just wanted to just deal with and move on. Like, the whole Galus with the Stewarts kind of thing. And the prophecy. It just pops up out of nowhere and pretty much is almost like, well, one, she pops up out of nowhere. It's like, okay, as she pretty much gives a rundown of how she survived her witch burning shit and her kid being alive and dealing with Dougal, and living in France and pretty much doing the same kind of stupid ass shit she's been doing of like killing people and just being an outright asshole. And it's just like, okay, if I know this is important motivations for her and for us to understand what she's attempting to do and be in this series, but what is the importance? Is it just for this point? And if so, there's like, it's pretty much gets crack loaded down at this bottom end of it. It's just, I don't mind it, but we need proper room to kind of get through it and absorb it and be like, what the fuck? It was just more sluggish to get through. And the thing is, I had started reading this, but then read some other stuff to kind of get back into a better kind of headspace, because I was pretty much trying to focus on as many details as possible. But I started getting through this a lot faster when I just started kind of skimming over the stuff that really didn't matter as much. Almost like trying to figure out certain kind of styles, like Brandon Sanderson with certain kind of things. Definitely with Robert Jordan with, oh, this embroidery, that embroidery. braid pulling, spanking, and shit. You know it's there, but you're like, all right, come on, let's kind of go with this, especially with certain kind of things of like either certain kind of 18th century kind of vocabulary where I'm like, I have a good enough kind of understanding of this, and certain kind of descriptions of certain kind of places where I'm like, I kind of got the general gist. Can we move along with this? So I don't think this is a bad book, but I do think that there are wildly strange choices that are done that really hampered my enjoyment of it, and where I'd be like, I'm good. I'd rather look into synopses of certain kind of things to understand what's kind of going on in the series, how it's kind of different or whatnot, because I'm like, it just baffles me. But I still like the characters of Claire and Jamie, and I think they really need, I understand the balance of what's going on with certain kind of attitudes of the times and everything, but sometimes you're just like, why are we spending so much time on this? Can we have what's important to this and then kind of move on? Because certain kind of bits when I'm wrong, I'm like, why is this important? Oh, because we needed to do this. So that way it makes sense for certain kind of later things. We needed the one-armed slave Temeraire, so that way we could link up with the whole Abernathy kind of thing with Ishmael, giving us the lowdown on that. Really kind of fucking weird. But hey, if you enjoyed it, and you enjoyed the writing of this series and everything, I'm totally good with that. And that's the thing. This isn't something for me to pretty much like try and shit on or anything. I don't think this is a bad book. I really don't think it's for me style-wise. And that happens a lot with certain kind of things. Yeah, if you enjoy this, power to you. That's awesome. I'm glad you have enjoyed it or are enjoying it. It's just, I think I would probably enjoy the show better, even though I do know that adaptations sometimes take weird fucking routes and just do weird ass shit. Sometimes like, I don't know why they did this. I don't get these choices. Game of Thrones, my friends, though granted, there are a lot of different kind of things going on with everything that happened with Game of Thrones. And I understand that something kind of similar is potentially happening with the show on this, where Gabaldon has not finished the 10th book yet, though granted she seems to be going at a better pace than Martin. So I think that they kind of wanted to end the series, but I'm like, just let her cook, let her finish. I really wish that some series would just do a hiatus thing and let it kind of go. Animes sometimes do that and do like filler arcs or whatnot. I mean, shit, they're doing a prequel series for crying out loud, following like Jamie's parents and shit. Take a break and let that fill the time. It's always weird when a series isn't done and you gotta play loose with it. Full Metal, Game of Thrones is a big example. The anime and manga of Full Metal Alchemist, that's another example. So I hope a Game of Thrones scenario does not happen with this series. One for my mom, two for all of the rest of the fans out there who don't deserve what happened there. Nobody deserves that. But hey, so those are my opinions on the book. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.